There we go. Okay, our next module here we're going to attack is the world of specialties. And for those who don't know what we in the world of track and field, what specialties are, we're talking about your jumps, vertical, horizontal jumps, that would be your triple, your long, and your high jump is your vertical. And in addition to that, hurdles. I'll address hurdles. I'm Nick Savage, and we'll introduce each one of us on our experience on working with the various fields. And then you have your throws. I will address throws, and you can address throws too, right? Okay. I'll address throws. So basically, we're going to do introductions first. Again.
Ladies first.
Ladies first.
Again, I'm Amirah, jump coach, triple and long at Tuscarora High School.
And give them a little background on your ability to jump. Give them some distance numbers so that everyone gets an idea that you're credentialed.
I honestly don't remember. High school, I was probably like 35, 36, 37. In the college, I was 41, close to 42, got some injuries, so I reached the ultimate goal of 44, so.
I'm Bruce Bornarth. Excuse me. I'm a jump coach at Parkview High School, Loudoun County High School, Osborne Park High School, and Team Flight. I've been coaching for 20 plus years.
And as I said, I'm Nick Savage, and my background, I was a hurdler, and a triple jump and a long jumper at college and in high school. So it kind of made an easy transition to get the knowledge in those areas. I was a 50-foot jumper, I guess a 23, 24-foot long jumper, and a 13.7 hurdler. And so we're going to go ahead from there. I think between playing and coaching, I guess we probably have, let's see, you've been coaching now for?
Not even a year.
A year. And Bruce and I are pretty old, so we won't tell you how many years. It was about 60 years.
Just combined, I think we're in triple figures. I'm so old that I ran track at actually Madison College, which is now JMU.
Okay, so we'll get started. And basically, my first words when we coach with the world of specialties is it's a complex word, but a very simple word that to me sums it up, and I get you guys' opinion on that. For the most part, the most difficult thing to teach, which is common amongst all three, is the penultimate step. And once you master the penultimate step, you're able to master the specialty. They have different approaches. You have different ways that you go about teaching the penultimate step based on whether it's vertical, hurdles, or horizontal. But for the most part, when many of our athletes are missing the board, scratching, hanging over hurdles, missing their mark on a high jump, not getting enough elevation, it usually comes down to the penultimate step. So Bruce, why don't you take a couple words and give your definition on how it's important to you and what the penultimate step is.
What he's talking about is the last step and the last two steps before you go into the jump, whether it be a horizontal jump, vertical jump, or even over hurdles, whatnot. It's getting that in the high jump anyway, that smooth transition from going horizontally to transitionally vertically so that it's smooth, and the takeoff in the high jump is basically The next step in the run, if you weren't to leave the ground, it's the exact same step. And we want to make sure that that's smooth and clean going up. We call it killing bugs when you stomp and slam on the ground. You do that, and young jumpers tend to think that I'm getting a spring off the ground by doing that. All you're doing at that point is driving all your energy and momentum right straight down into the ground when you want to go in the totally opposite direction. So we want to make that last step smooth so that you don't even hear the foot hit. We want to land heel, toe. If you look at a high jump spike, there's 4 spikes coming out of the heel, and I think it's 6 in a curve up around the front like you would normally see in most other track spikes. Use that heel, go heel to the ball of your foot, not to your toe, to the ball of your foot, and transition up. So you kind of roll into that step straight up. If you jump off your toe, it's going to throw you into the bar instead of up and over the bar. The other thing it does if you jump off of your toe and lead with that is, I'm going to stand up and show you. If you come up on your toe, then all your muscles in your leg get nice and tight, and you've already sprung. The jump is over at that point, and you've got no elevation. But if you come and roll from your heel to the ball of your foot, now there's that energy, and that's where the spring comes from. It doesn't come from slamming the ground.
Thanks, Bruce. Amirah?
I think he explained it pretty well. I just say it's really your gear up step. Some people have it naturally, some people you have to teach. It's probably one of the hardest steps to teach in long jump. I don't know about high jump. I didn't really do high jump too much, but for me as coaching, a lot of my athletes don't do it, so they are at a flat. So I am in the process of teaching them. It's a really quick step, so you feel it, but you don't feel it, because when you're running down the runway, it's so quick.
Sure.
Like you're running down the runway, and that's the board. You're literally popping off the board. It's your gear up step to give you that elevation of flight, to hold you and prolong you into the pit.
Okay, thank you. And as Amirah and Bruce said, as far as if we're dealing with the horizontal jump, basically, what I tell the kids, and like you said, you want to keep it fun. Most of those who've seen Thriller, the video, Michael Jackson, then they get a kind of a visual. That's a popular video, no matter how old you are now, because Michael Jackson's still popular. And you take a step short. Because most of the time, especially with horizontal, so when you see Michael Jackson and they're doing a bump, 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 and that's basically a penultimate step. 1, 2, 3, and then you execute whatever your specialty is. And what happens with the horizontal jumps, how often do we hear, just like on a takeoff, most jumpers, they got their steps, they count them out, but they don't understand, all you jumpers out there, it's going to vary differently based on the weather conditions, the slipperiness of the runway, the quality of the board. What I tell most of my jumpers are, make sure you trust your training and you can find your peripheral. Most people don't sit and look at the runway. Well, what is typically at the runway? Right where the board is. Cones, and more importantly, what? An official. Great job, Ryan. An official. So if you, on your peripheral, and you see an official there, standing there, like if Bruce is an official, take his inside shoulder, it's time to go. It's time to jump. That's really the end of it. So you've got your 16 steps, but at the end of the day, you may feel sick one day, you may feel great another day, maybe a wind behind your back, but you gotta trust your training and use your visual cues, instead of reaching for a board. Now with hurdles, it's a little different. And I'll let these guys talk about the other two. But as far as hurdles, I basically try to instruct all our hurdlers to focus on being a sprinter. Because let's deal with it. Any coach, any college coach will tell you, and half the high school coaches, anyone that has had champions, I'd rather have a raggedy hurdler who has national or world-class speed than a flawless slow hurdler. Because at the end of the day, you typically take the time of your open and just add 3. That's typically your potential. So example, if you run a 10.6 in the 100, for the most part, you'll be able to run about a 13.6 in the hurdles as your potential. Same thing, it's very easy to find intermediate hurdlers. If, say, for example, we have one of you out there that you run a 300, or more importantly, a 400. Typically at that 300 meter mark and you're frustrated, how do I pick intermediate hurdlers so that they are in a smaller population of being successful? If they're coming off that 300 mark, say 17 seconds, 16 to 17 seconds, so if you're running a 60, since that's usually the frustration point for most 400 meter runners for girls, or 50 for boys where they can't break through. Well, all of a sudden, instead of you competing against, 40 kids who can run around 60 or less on the girls' side, and another, I'll say 20, and another 20, although kids are getting faster, right? And you have another 20 who are on the boys' side who can run under that 50, in that 46 to 48. But if you're at that 50, and all of a sudden you're coming off that point in 33 seconds, then it's a good chance you add that 3 to 4 seconds in the hurdles. Now you're a 37-second hurdler. You're in a smaller group of people that you're competing against than in that 400 meter run. So that's an example. So you focus on becoming an efficient hurdler and a great sprinter. And the more sprint work, same as we all say with jumps, the better you become as a specialist because you have consistent steps. Talk about 100?
Beginning and up. In the high jump, when you're dealing with younger jumps, you look at the high jump and there are 100 little things that go into the high jump. I equate it to a basketball layup adding a backflip to it. If you think about a basketball layup, you steal the ball at one end of the court, you break away, you're going down the other end. You're not thinking, okay, do I have to cross over to get it to the other hand to put it up there? I can only take 3 steps when I pick the ball up. What angle am I coming in when I get across half court? How do I get the ball in the square behind the basket so it goes in? That's natural. You don't think about that, it just happens. With the high jump, it's almost exactly the same motion. I tell these younger jumpers, you go in, you're doing a basketball layup. If there's a pole or something in line with the bar behind you, you say, all right, that's a basket, go make a layup. Go make a layup, and then, in essence, add a backflip to it. And that starts to make a little bit of sense to them. And when you get to the point in the high jump that you're not thinking about all the little things that go into it, just like a layup, that's when you really break through to the next area. Now, having said that, there are a ton of little things to focus on, but we try to maintain, once jumpers have gotten a hang of it, we focus primarily on 4 aspects of it. One is the approach. Nothing happens without the approach being right going in. If your approach is off, it can promote diving into the bar, which is probably the big problem. I blew out the battery. There we go. Diving into the bar is probably the biggest problem or issue that younger jumpers have. So we work on the approach. That helps promote that and helps get that proper angle when you leave the ground. So we focus on approach, body lean, knee drive, and arch and riding the jump over the bar. There are other little things that you have to think about as far as foot angle. Where do you put your foot? What's it pointing at when you get to the bar? When you get up, what do you do with your arms? What do you do with your legs when you get up in the air? But if you get those 4 basics down, you get the approach, body lean, knee drive, and arch over the bar, then everything else becomes fine-tuning at that point.
Triple jump and long jump and hurdles, they're probably the most technical of all events, mostly in track and field. For long jump, there's like a 3-part component. You have your approach, of course, and then you have the board, your penultimate step, and then you have your landing. So if you can't piece them all together, you're probably not going to get the result that you want. Landing, a lot of people have problems with keeping their knee up, driving their knee up, holding it, and following through. A lot of jumpers like to just drop their legs, which drops their jump. Also, board watching, that's the #1 thing in jumping. You run down to the board and you feel like you don't trust your steps, so you basically slow down your run, then try to jump. Basically, you just ruined your whole jump, then you're upset with yourself. Well, why didn't I get this? That's because you slowed down. And another big thing really for long jump is really the penultimum. Like I said earlier, a lot of people naturally just have it, and a lot of people don't. And if you can't pop off the board to get that elevation up to hang in the air for your long jump, then you're literally just dropping your jump. You're not going to get the distance that you want because you don't have the physical or the strength to hold it. Triple jump, there's a lot going on in triple jump. It's the most technical out of all 3 jumps, in my opinion. He probably disagrees, but it's technically, it's the #1. You have your runway, you have your hop, skip, and your, of course, jump. So you don't want a penultimate step in the triple jump at all. That's going to ruin your whole jump. It's going to slow down your run. Then when you're coming off the board, you want to be at an angle, of course, because you want to run off the board and cycle through. And a lot of triple jumpers have a problem with, they don't have the physical strength and their knees buckle. So when your knees buckle, you basically lost all your momentum going into your next 2 phases. When you lose your momentum, then you're basically using straight power from there. And a lot of people have the power, and a lot of people don't even make it into the pit. So you have that, and then your second component of the triple jump is your bound. So that's probably your shortest phase, of course, and if you can't hold the bound, then you're using a lot of more energy for the long jump, which is your final phase, where you have to swing your leg through. Your phases should be a Y, X kind of Y when you're going through each phase. You should basically hear it when you're triple jumping. It's literally a into the pit. And if you hear your jump is it's off. So it's just a lot of components going into it. You could be a flawless bounder, have perfect form, but if you cannot connect your runway run with your jump, it's going to be very hard for you as a jumper.
2 things that Amirah said that I hope you guys are listening to that pertain, one to the sand jumps and overall, and the other triple jump. One of the things that we tell our jumpers is, we ask them the question when they come out to long and triple jump, when is the jump over? And they look at you like, what? I say, when is the jump over? And they come up with 1,000 different answers. The answer is the jump's over when you land. So the idea is when you're in the air, you're still going forward, so you want to fight that landing and stay in the air as long as you possibly can because you're moving forward and continuing through the jump. The other thing that you said that I think is key, how many of you have heard or coaches have said that the triple jump it's a hop, step, and a jump, or a hop, skip, and a jump? That's what most high school and probably a lot of college triple jumpers look like they're doing. Hop and a step, and the step may only end up being like that, very, very short. You look at the other phases of the jump, and they are 2 and 3 times farther. It's not a hop and a step. It's a hop, a bound, and a finish. Exactly. And you have to think of that as a bound in the middle. And if you're a high school triple jumper and you can get and develop that bound in the middle, then you are going to be miles ahead of everybody else, because your middle phase is going to expand and explode like crazy. Now, having said that, that's not an easy thing to do. In 20 plus years of coaching, I've only had one jumper that I can remember that naturally bounded in the middle. And I had to have him do it again. I looked and I said, Justin, do that again. And I grabbed the other coach. I said, look, he's got a bound in the middle. And the next thing you know, he's an all-state triple jumper.
Right. Just 30 seconds on the triple, and then I'll move to intermediate, advanced hurdles. For me, what I've tried to do is focus on the goal of having consistent thirds of each of those pieces. Now, is it usually achievable? No, but if you have at least mentally, if you're training a triple jumper and you want them to be, say, a 45-foot jumper, you try to establish a goal of, let's shoot for 15, 15, 15. Now, does it end that way? Not necessarily. You might have that first phase, which is an 18, and then you have a 13. That's more realistic. But you'll have that world-class jumper once they have that capability of going, where it's 60 feet. Your goal is 20, 20, 20, which, believe it or not, that's where the world is in triple jump now. With that, moving on to hurdles, once again, you got to go back to sprints. You got to go back to sprints. Anyone thinking about hurdling, don't keep, it always cracks me up when I'll see the hurdlers spend 75% of the time going over the hurdles and 25% of the time running. And especially if it's a high hurdler, right? Because they're trying to avoid, I know how I was in college, I was playing football. So I really, although I could, I could have been All-American intermediate hurdler, I ain't gonna tell you how. You didn't have to work as hard just doing high hurdles and triple jump if you were playing football and going to school. But if you're gonna pick what you're best at, the intermediate hurdles is a lot of work. It's equivalent to being an 800 runner. It's equivalent to running 600s all the time. It is when a college coach is deciding where you are. A college coach, when you guys get recruited, we'll talk about that next, but when you're getting recruited, a college coach is deciding whether you're going to be an 800-meter runner, a multi-event, okay, because I know Amirah is an excellent athlete, and I was a decathlete possibility as well, candidate as well. Or they're saying you're an intermediate hurdler. So you can convert an 800-meter runner to an intermediate hurdler, or you convert them usually to a multi-event person as well, if they like the high jump or something like that. Personally, I was scared of the high jump. It didn't feel right. But as far as hurdlers go, you want to treat it as a sprinter, and each one of those phases, the same language you use as a sprinter, you use as a hurdler. Phase 1 is the drive phase. The most important phase, not only for sprinters, it's even more important for hurdlers. Because as a hurdler, the three of us are together. You do not want to be together at all as a hurdler. Because the first thing that happens, if you have that bad hurdler I'm talking about who's fast, and someone like a Roger Kingdom who's 220 pounds, and he hits you in the chest, and you're a smaller guy, I've had champions like that. They've lost the race because the hurdler just smacked them in the face, and nobody cares, okay? I mean, on film, nobody cares. You just lost the race. So you really want to get through that drive phase as long as you can. You notice the common thing, as long as you can. You should be coming out of that drive phase and trust your training that you can hurdle at the last second. Same thing on intermediate, when you have to switch, hurdle at the last second. In order to do that, you have to master the penultimate step. And the other thing that's common amongst all three, you've got to have great hips. You got to be able to use your hips and have that hip flexion to pop back up and get back down. So it's really a quick twitch, and make sure that you spring through your hips. If you don't spring through your hips, you're not going to be consistent on your landings or your speed. Then the second phase, the intermediate portion, which is your flight stage, you almost have to, we do drills to pick up speed and not settle into that 1, 2, 3 rhythm, that you actually pick up speed in that 4th to 7th hurdle. And then your overspeed, that finish, to make sure you maintain that velocity. So in order for coaches out there to do drills, I do overspeed drills. I think that's one of the key things we do, is that if we run 400 meter hurdles or 300 meter hurdles, I train them to run 350 meter hurdles, 450 meter hurdles, and if it's a high hurdle, you go ahead and train over 11 hurdles. Earlier we talked about Deontay or Vincent Brown, or one of those guys in the highs. Basically, there's nothing more powerful to a hurdler if they already know they're running a mid-14 over 11 hurdles than running, a 14.5 over 10. Now they have the confidence to break 14 and run with national level guys. Okay. Anything you guys want to add?
Just real quickly to wrap up on the high jump, we could sit here for probably 2 hours and talk about drills and things. I want to just talk about a couple of aspects and a little bit of practice philosophy and maybe meet philosophy and management. I am sure that you coaches out there, and a lot of you jumpers and all, have been around and you see high jumpers that hit the bar going in or on the way up, or they skim it with their bottom or their mid area as they're going over. That's one of the biggest issues that jumpers have, and one of the way people will look at it and not know really how to correct that. The cause of that is usually one of two things. First cause is, remember I talked about we work on body lean. You really want your body leaning away from the bar when you come in, and drive your knee and your arm away from the bar, which causes that rotation to get you over a short span of the bar. If you're diving in, then you're going to travel down along the bar farther, and the longer you are on top of the bar, the more likely it is that something's going to hit it because you're just there. The way to correct that is you really want to be away from the bar, drive this knee, or this knee if you're coming from the left side, inside knee away from the bar, arm away from the bar, that gets you that up first and then rotation over, and that will prevent you from diving in so that you can get up over the bar and finish it. The other aspect, how many times have you guys seen high jumpers get over the bar, they're way over the bar by inches, and the next thing you know, their bottom falls right down on it? That is I'm sorry, let me back up 1 second. The second issue on diving into the bar is if a jumper is diving off or jumping off their toe. Because if you jump off your toe, nature says you have to go that way. It will propel you forward. But if you roll and go to the ball of your foot, now you can jump straight up. So those are the two issues that promote diving into the bar. What promotes falling down on it after you're way over it, that means that the jumper is really finishing the jump before they get past the bar. The way you do that is that body arch and get that lean and get your head back away looking at the far corner of the pit. And holding and being patient enough to hold that arch through the jump till you're clear of the bar. The other issue that jumpers have is hitting it with their feet or the lower part of their legs, calf down. That comes from having your feet wrapped under too far and not getting your feet out of the way. If you look at what we teach is if you go over the bar and you draw your knees towards your chest, watch where my feet go. They go right back into the bar. So when you're coaching this, watch your jumpers from in front or from the side and see, are they bringing their knees up to their chest, which drives their ankles and lower part into the bar. We teach what we call a flare. If you go over the bar and in your arch and you're over and you flare your legs out, watch where my feet go. They go out along the bar and then away from the bar. So now your feet are clear. Out and away from the bar. Now your feet aren't even an issue anymore. You might say, well, I was watching the Olympics or the IAAFs or these world-class jumpers, and they don't flare. That's true. They don't. But they're advanced jumpers, and when you're a younger jumper, you need to be able to learn how to get your feet out of the way. If you watch a world-class jumper, they're over the bar, they've got that arch, then they collapse in the middle and bring it over. They can do that because they're in the air longer and they're over the bar longer, and they have time to do that to get their feet out of the way. Younger jumpers in high school aren't jumping high enough to teach that motion, so that's advanced jumping. You're right. That's what world-class jumpers, Olympians do. That's not what we do in high school yet, unless you got a boy that's jumping 7 feet and a girl that's jumping 6 feet. Lastly, well, we got a couple of those. Lastly, and I don't want to take up too much time, but I want to talk a little bit about practice. We only actually jump in practice twice a week, plus meets when we're in the middle of the season. And in practice, we do very little full approach jumping. We do a lot of half approach, 4 or 5 step drill work, because one, it conserves energy. You're not using as much energy. You get more reps in, and you can work on that, on aspects of it. When you are doing those short approaches, either do them off the ground, or if you have a box, use a box, which is great because it gets them in the air higher, longer. They have more time to work on their technique. Plus, they get used to being in the air and high like that. Pick one aspect at a time, whether you want to work on knee drive in this set of jumps, whether you want to work on arch, whether you want to work on flare, but don't give them too much to do at once. Just one thing at a time when you're doing the drills. You can look up drills anywhere. We can talk about drills in a separate session when we get outside. Last thing a little bit, I want to talk about meet management when you're going out there. Championship jumpers usually want to start a meet 2, maybe 3 steps below what their PR is. So if you're a 6-foot boy high jumper, then you don't want to start much lower than 4.6. How many times do you go to meet and you see somebody that jumps at a low height and they clear it by that much? And the next thing you know, by the time they get to the championship heights, they've already jumped 8, 9, 10 times, which is too much. Any coach you talk to or anything you read or clinic you go to, you'll find that ideally you don't want to jump more than 5 or 6 jumps in a competition. Limit the jumps. It's kind of like a baseball bat. There's only so many hits in a baseball bat. There's only so many jumps in your legs. And the last thing I will say is, the key to championship jumping is being clean with no misses. Try to work on getting in a meet. Don't take those lower heights for granted, because how many times do you see people miss out on getting a medal because they had an early season miss? So the key to championship jumping is being clean, no misses.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Okay, Mr. Cup.